Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Martha, and I'll be filling in for Tim.
Ha, I tricked you. I went to this voicemaker website, and I think a lot of those videos on YouTube that sound kind of robotic, I think they're using these engines to produce the program, maybe from China or India. Yeah, it's like a broken record out there. Fair skies and hot, with temperatures about 94 and dew points running in the low 70s. Well, elsewhere around the country, it's pretty similar. In fact, if you take a look up in the eastern corridor, up into the northeast U.S., we've got 90s. Got 91 up there in New Hampshire, and 90 down south around, I think that's going to be the Concord area, but certainly very hot in the eastern U.S., and even more interestingly, take a look up in the Canadian Maritimes. The warm sector has pushed all the way into the Canadian Maritimes and into Newfoundland and Labrador. We've got 84 degrees at Nain, and that's not really close to the all-time record of 92, but it's certainly very toasty in that part of Canada. Powerful occlusion around Hudson Bay, and we're still bringing in cold air into Ontario, and of course that'll reach the northeastern U.S. early this weekend. Around the rest of the country, we have this weak polar front starting to slow down and stagnate. It should make it down into Arkansas, Tennessee, and possibly even further south, but typically they do tend to stall in this area right there. Further to the west, still got the monsoon going on in Phoenix and at Safford there. So we'll be taking a look at the satellite and checking that out. And in the northwestern U.S., coming up to 83 at Portland and 84 at Seattle. Let's take a look at the records. This is what we're expecting when all's said and done. Remember, the red is going to be where records are expected to be broken. White is where records are expected to be tied for the date. And gray is where the record will not be threatened for today. So we are going to reach records for August 13th at Hillsboro near Portland, and also in Seattle. They're expecting to come up to 97. Going to reach 102 at Winnemucca, but that's not near a record. And on the East Coast, JFK will be tying the record for the date at 92, and other parts of the northeast U.S. will be reaching the mid to upper 90s. Here's what we're expecting for tomorrow. A continuation of the heat. Lewiston tying their record set in 1920, and Yakima and Burns coming up to near 100, 104 there at Yakima, and that will pass their record set in 1992 by 2 degrees. For Sunday, some relief for the heat in the northwest. However, the heat spreads out into Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota, coming up to 101 at Williston, and Billings also breaking their record, coming up to 101. And let's just check out Monday. Quite possibly the forecasts on Monday are going to come closer to the climatological normals. That tends to be the way the forecasts are done, so we're not going to really be seeing many records that far out. However, it does look like much of the Dakotas coming within range of the record for the date, and some of that heat all the way down into the central Rockies. So what this all tells us is the heat will be starting out in the northwest for today and gradually spreading to the west over the weekend. A bit of tropical weather in Alaska. You can see this flow coming up from the south across British Columbia and Yukon, and temperatures approaching 70. But look at those dew points. They're in the 50s and almost 60 right up there near Haines. Actually, it's probably Skagway. Yakutat, which is located right there, recorded their all-time precipitable water amount of 1.57 inches. And they've got an atmospheric river coming up from the south The IVT values, which we use to measure the volume of those atmospheric rivers, is the third highest ever recorded for the evening sounding. Juneau, located right about in here, recorded 1.28 inches in 6 hours overnight last night. And we're talking about precipitation, not precipitable water. And this is what we're talking about with that atmospheric river. Alaska located right there, Yakutat in there, and this is that plume of moisture coming up from, looks like maybe originally Japan, and the warm currents in that region. And these purples, those are going to be precipitable waters of 1.5 inches. So there it is, atmospheric river coming up into southeast Alaska. This is going back on Wednesday, and we go up through Thursday. You can see it impacting the southeast part of Alaska there, and then we get into early this morning. The atmospheric river gradually shifts to the east, and this is about where we're at right now, affecting Ketchikan, Prince Rupert, and coming across, you can see the effect of that drying, that lee side effect on the east side of the mountains, but quite a bit of moisture and clouds coming across British Columbia. Let me bring that up to the current model. I really wish we had a model sector that zoomed down on this area. It's very hard to find that on these model websites. But that's what we got right there. And it looks like that atmospheric river gradually shifts down the coast over Saturday, and we can see it taking aim on Vancouver and Seattle around Monday. So we will see the rain picking up in that part of the country. And it is active out in the Atlantic. We've got Tropical Depression Fred moving across central Cuba, taking aim on the western Florida coast. And over here, Tropical Cyclone 7 approaching the Leeward Islands, and that'll follow a similar track to what Fred did. There's the track we have on Fred there, very consistent. That's a very good forecast. It's been like this for about the past week. Maybe a little bit of a westward jog coming inland. And there's the track we have on the other storm, turning into a tropical depression maybe this evening, and then overnight into a tropical storm. And this will become Tropical Storm Grace. And there's that track once again, like the last storm, heading over Dominica, and then maybe heading for the east coast of Florida. Now, I really don't question these forecast graphics because a lot of expertise goes into these, and I've got a lot of other regions to look at, and I don't really have a whole depth of tropical cyclone expertise, and I kind of know when to leave it to the experts. So I don't see any real reason to depart from this, but if for some reason we get unexpected intensification, we will take a closer look at it. Let's check in on that southwest monsoon, Arizona located right down here. This is starting out yesterday morning, looking at the infrared imagery. If we run this forward, we can see storms going up on the Mogollon Rim out towards Prescott, and also a few more storms from just east of Yuma down to about Douglas. And by the time we get into the after dark hours, large storms around the Yuma area and just south of Sells, I guess. I think Ajo is there, Sells, and Tucson. So, yeah, these storms avoided a lot of Arizona yesterday, and only Tucson got about a 1/4 inch at some point. And we bring that up to the current time. Some new cells going up around Nogales and Douglas, but looks kind of quiet for the rest of the state, except right on that Mogollon Rim. And we'll go to the visible imagery. You can see the infrared switching over to visible as the sun rises, and I really love that three-dimensional structure you see right around dawn. Features really stand out there, but as we go into the morning hours, a lot of debris cloud around Arizona, and then as the afternoon goes on, we start seeing the towers, such as right here, and of course, right down along the border. And that brings us up to the current time. large towers down along the southern border, but looks pretty quiet in a lot of the rest of the state. There's still a chance that these storms could come off the mountains and move southwest, and these could get going, but that's still quite a ways away. Some good storms out there in West Texas where we have the return flow coming up from Central Texas, dew points in the 60s and 70s there, and we're getting those storms just firing right along whatever boundary is sitting right there. While we were going through that Arizona imagery, I'm sure a few of you were looking up in this area here, and you're going, God, what's happening up in that region? Yeah, big storms in Kansas and Missouri. Let's take a look at that. Well, checking in on SPC, it looks like no tornadoes, but some hail reports. Appears to be early on during those storms, and then as the storms matured, a lot of wind problems, and yeah, one little tornado report around the Houston area. That's weird. That's around 4 p.m. I guess one of those sea breeze storms managed to drop something out. Anyway, let's go to the satellite. So yesterday there was a boundary through this region, and we rolled this forward. See some towers going up in northeastern Kansas yesterday. This is yesterday about noon, and some other towers, and actually those are full mature storms up there near the Quad Cities. Anyway, that stuff develops. Lots of storms around St. Joseph, and the rest of the boundary out there along Interstate 70 gets going. Yeah, those are some big storms. And towards the end there, some impressive gravity waves, especially as the sun gets lower and you get that oblique angle over the cloud tops. Yeah, that's that same effect I'm talking about. And man, look at that overshoot right there, just north of Kansas City. Checking in on those wildfires in California, we can see the hot spots. In fact, yeah, that's the Dixie Fire right there. And then we've got the Mount Shasta Fire off the top. That's it up there. And then we've got the Monument and one of those other fires. If we bring this up across the dawn hours into morning, lots of smoke underneath this cirrus and altocumulus. And as we go into the morning hours, the fires themselves start to show up, and then we can see what looks like some pyrocumulus right there. I think that's lift from maybe some of that warm air dispersing in the mid-levels. Certainly looks like it. And the Dixie Fire located right there, so looks like problems are continuing and the smoke is being carried up to the north there. Before we look at satellite on the East Coast, let's check in at the Storm Prediction Center. Remember, we have that cold front about like that, and those marginal and slight risks are aligned right along that boundary, so we know that those are going to be frontally generated. So slight risk from Kentucky all the way up to central New York, and a separate slight risk out in the D.C. area. And we've got at least 2 severe watch boxes out for that region. Okay, so now we've got a pretty good idea what to expect. And further down the tail end looks like an MCS around the Memphis area. So hopscotching our way up the front, there's that MCS. Looks like towers get going during the morning out around the Boot Heel of Missouri. And separate storms along what looks like a little outflow boundary right there. Isn't that pretty cool? Lots of detail you can see on this visible imagery. New storms right there. Those are going to be the strongest storms at that time, which is about 1 p.m. And that brings us up to the current time. Boom. Storms everywhere in western Tennessee and northern Mississippi. There's how it looks this morning in the mid-Atlantic coast region. Don't really see much until things light up. One little axis right there of storms. And I think the front is further up in this region right there. In any case, yeah, these are prefrontal storms. And as we go into the late morning and afternoon, some spectacular storms, especially in central Virginia right there. You could almost chase some of those storms on that tail end right there. And also some very large storms going up in the Washington, D.C. area just north of there. And then further up the front, I'm guessing the moisture is not quite as deep. There's the progression of the satellite images, and we got certainly some storms going up around Albany and Schenectady. Those are probably going to continue developing and move into the western New England area, Massachusetts, Connecticut area this afternoon. And yes, we can go further up the front because we're brave adventurers here. That's the front in Quebec. Things look a little bit more linear and forced. That's the axis right there along that front. And let's go further up.
The Maritimes is blocked by our tree. Get the tree away so everyone can see the Maritimes.
Well, we don't have a sector right over St. Lawrence Valley, but let's put it up there in Newfoundland because temperatures are in the 80s up there. You know, there may be some chase potential in Labrador. I don't know if anybody is chasing storms up there, but there we go. Fast-moving flow. And we are getting some cumulus, but it looks like it is kind of vertical. And with these impressive dew points, 70 degrees, possibly coming up and combining with those 80-degree temperatures, I think there's some impressive theta E's up there, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a thunderstorm or two this evening. And we're about 16 minutes in, so that's probably a good stopping point. I hope you all have a great weekend. I want to thank Martha for the introduction.
Thank you, and be sure to check out weathergraphics.com for books and software, and help support this program.
We'll see you all again on Monday for the supporters, and on Wednesday for everybody else. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.